Hello class. Let's take a look at this test review. So if you can do everything that's on this test, you should be able to be successful on the test tomorrow. Okay, so first few questions here are just two-step equations. So we think about the three rules that we have. First rule is get your letters on one side. Second rule, get your numbers on the other side. And for both of those, we add the opposite, and then we solve. In each of these, one of those rules is already done. You'll notice that we have a letter on one side and we've got two numbers. So that means the letters are already done for us and we don't need to mess with those. And all we need to do is move this 5 over to be with the 35. And the way we do that is we add its opposite. So 10x plus 5 plus negative 5 is equal to 35 plus negative 5. And that's exactly the way I expect to see the work done on the test tomorrow. So now my 5's go away. I'm left with 10x is equal to, and 35 plus negative 5 gives us 30. Okay, so now, how do I get rid of a multiply by 10? We do a divide by 10, divide both sides by 10 there, and you end up with x is equal to 3. Now you could plug this back into the equation to see if it works. 10 times 3 gives us 30, plus 5 does give me 35. So x is equal to 3 is my final answer. Number 2, there's a little pre-work that we need to do first. We have some minus here. So for me, I prefer to change subtraction to addition next to its opposite to prevent careless mistakes. So that's what I did. So now I'm going to do this problem exactly the way I did the other one. I need to get the negative 9 over to be with the 15. So 6a plus negative 9 plus positive 9 is equal to 15 plus the positive 9, making sure that I add the same thing to both sides. And I end up with 6a, because my 9's go away, equals, and then 15 plus 9 gives us 24. Now, how do I get rid of a multiply by 6? Do a divide by 6. Divide by 6, a is equal to 4. Okay. Now, number 3 and number 4 are very similar because they have division in the problem as opposed to multiplication. So let's see how it's different. Okay, again, number 3 here has some pre-work. So I'm going to change this, change subtraction to addition next to its opposite. Now I need to move the negative 13 to be with the 3. So d over 5 plus negative 13 plus 13 equals 3 plus 13. Okay? So d over 5 is equal to 16. Now to get rid of a divide by 5, we do a multiply by 5. To show that, we just do a times 5 on this side, times 5 on this side, and we get d is equal to, so my 5's divide out, and my 16 times 5, that gives us 80 for our answer. Now, number 4 is a little bit different because we have 1/4 w. Well, if we were to look at d over 5 over here on number 3, another way of writing d over 5 is 1/5 d, and that means the same exact thing. So if 1/5 d and d over 5 are the same, 1/4 w is the same thing as w over 4. Okay? So you can actually use w over 4 as opposed to 1/4 w. Makes no difference. Okay? So now we've got to get rid of this 7 and move it over to be with the negative 4. So w over 4, or 1/4 w, plus 7 plus negative 7 is equal to negative 4 plus negative 7. So w over 4 is equal to, when we put negative 4 and negative 7 together, we end up with negative 11. Now, to get rid of the divide by 4, I do a multiply by 4 on both sides, and you end up with w equaling negative 44. So that's how you work the first 4 problems. And those are just two-step equations. Now let's look at some multi-step equations. Now on a problem like number 5, we've got letters on both sides and numbers on both sides. And that's okay. Okay, it's just now we have to do all 3 steps. So I'm going to get my letters, this 4b, over to be with the 8b. So I start at the equal sign, and then I start writing 4b plus negative 4b, and then we change the minus to a plus next to its opposite in the original problem. So then plus negative 18. Okay, so it's just coming along for the ride for right now. So now we have 8b plus 2 plus the new thing from the other side, which was negative 4b. Okay, so now we combine like terms. The 8b and the negative 4b gives us 4b plus 2 is equal to, and then we bring down the 18 because our 4b's go away. Now I need to move the 2 over to be with the negative 18. So we do that by doing 4b plus 2 plus negative 2. So here's the new thing, equals negative 18 plus negative 2. So that gives us 4b is equal to negative 20. So when we divide through by 4, divide through by 4, we end up with b equaling negative 5 for our answer. Okay, so this one we just had one extra step in there from the problems that we had at the beginning on 1 through 4. Okay, now we had to get our letters together and our numbers together. So we do the same thing in number 6, but you'll notice in number 6 we have some pre-work that needs to happen. Okay, so the 7w plus 6 is just fine. Okay, but on the other side I have a 2w and a 5w that could go together to give you 7w plus 7. Now at this point you should begin to notice something. I have a 7w on the left and a 7w on the right. So something strange is going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to move this 7w over. So 7w plus negative 7w plus 7 is equal to 7w plus 6 plus negative 7w. Okay, so if you'll notice on both sides my 7w's go away and I'm left with 6 is equal to 7. Well, is that a true statement? No, it's not. So the way we answer this is you put a slash through the equal sign because 6 is not equal to 7 and you write no solution. Okay. And that's how you answer that question. Okay, on this one, on number 7, well again, we have some pre-work that needs to happen. Okay, I see that I've got a plus and negative there, and I can add the negative 8 and the 4 together. So I end up with 8h plus negative 4 is equal to negative 4 plus 8h. And again, you should begin to notice something going on. My 8h and 8h on both sides. Okay, so something strange is going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 8h's. So negative 4 plus 8h plus negative 8h. And over here it's 8h plus negative 4 plus negative 8h. And you'll notice the 8h's go away on both sides, and we're left with negative 4 is equal to negative 4. Now in question number 6, it made a false statement. But in question number 7, we have a true statement. So if it is a true statement, then we say all real numbers. Because every answer I plug into H will work. Okay, so let's look at the review section then. Okay, this section on the last 4 questions, these are some old things that we did that we just have to continue to revisit. Okay, so number 8 says, which list shows numbers in descending order? First, descending order means greatest to least. Okay, to descend means to go down. Okay, so we're looking for an order that's from greatest to least. Okay, so on most of these problems, what you're looking for is, like on A, we look for positives to be first since I want greatest to least. So automatically, since A has got negatives first and it has positives, I know A is going to be the wrong answer. Now all the rest of these, you'll notice we have some square roots, we have some fractions, we have some mixed numbers. So you take your calculator to find the decimal equivalent of each one of these. So I've already done that. Okay, so to speed things up, I'll just kind of write down the equivalents. I'm not going to pull the calculator up to find the answer. Okay, so when we look at letter B here, we've got an 18, we've got a square root of 21, which is equivalent to 4.58, and it keeps going. We have a 1/2, which is a 0.5, and then we have negative 4.82. So 18, 4.58, 0.5, negative 4.82, is that in descending order? Yes, it is. And B is the correct answer. But if you look at the rest of these, on C, the square root of 9 is 3. 17 over 2 gives us 8.5. 7 3/8 gives us 7.375. And then 21% gives us 0.21. So when we look at those numbers, we see we go from 3 to 8 to 7. Okay, that 3 messes things up, and it's not in descending order. So C is out. The same thing for D. We've got 8.75. The square root of 50 is 7.07, and it keeps going. 33 1/3% is just 0.3 repeating, and then we have 40.5. So when we look at all of those, we see that the 40.05, if it were first, then that would be okay. But it's not, so D is out. B is the correct answer. Number 9 is something very similar. Fred orders a set of numbers on his homework. In ascending order, the first number is 5 1/3, and the last number is 5 1/2. which of the following numbers is not in Fred's list? So what I'm trying to do, I've got 5 1/3 and 5 1/2. I'm trying to find out which one of these is not in between those two numbers. Well, 5 1/3 is the same thing as 5.333, so on. Okay? 5 1/2 is 5.5. So I'm looking for which number will actually fit in between there. Okay, so when we look at our decimal values of each of them, 5.45 and 5.34, those are pretty easy to deal with. Is 5.45 in between 5.33 and 5.50? Yes, it is. So this one is. What about 5.34? Yes, it is, because that's 5.34 and this is a 3.3. So now we're looking at these two. And if we look at the square root of 25, we know that the value of that is 5. And 5 and 5/12 would be somewhere between 5, or would be 5.416 with the 6 repeating. So which one is actually in between those? Is it 5 or 5.4? 5.4 is in between it, so that means A is one that is not in the list, because 5 would be somewhere down here. Okay, last two questions. Number 10, the surface area of Earth is 5.101 times 10 to the 8th square kilometers. What is that number in standard form? So I'm looking for what is that number in as a regular number. So we know that this times 10 to the 8th moves the decimal. Okay, so 5.101, and it tells us that it's going to move the decimal 8 places to the right. Not 8 zeros, but 8 places. So we move the decimal 8 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places. So that means we're going to add 5 zeros to our number. So this number in standard form would be 5101,000,000. So what is that number? 510,100,000. Okay, and then we would tack a label on kilometers. Okay, number 11 says the set of irrational numbers includes all of the following except. So we need to remember what irrational numbers are. Irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be expressed as a fraction. Okay, they are numbers that just keep going, but they don't repeat, but they don't terminate when we look at it as a decimal. Okay, so we look at the numbers that we have. Well, we know pi is our most famous irrational number. So it is an irrational, so it's okay. Now b has got 0.45, 455, 4555, and then it keeps going, but there's not really a pattern. Okay, we might be able to see some kind of a pattern there, but there's not a consistent pattern like 45, 45, 45, 45. Okay, so this one is also an irrational number. Now I told you back about 2 weeks ago that if we're looking for irrational numbers, just because it's under a radical doesn't mean that it's irrational. You have to actually type it into the calculator. And if you type in C, the square root of 169, you get a nice pretty number of 13. When you type in D, you end up with 11.13552, and it just keeps going. Okay, so the one number that is not part of the set of irrational numbers is C. So that's how you work each of the questions on this test review. If you can do all of these questions, then you should be able to do all of the questions on the test.